in progress.
Hello.
Hey, Leila. Leila, I don't know what is going on because people are able to resubmit. I don't know if you got it figured out, but I looked at it last night and then I just didn't have time to send you an email, but it's open and available to resubmit.
Today I did it.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Okay, great.
But I'm not sure because my computer update and again change. I'm not sure. I submit exact essay or maybe wrong essay.
Got it. I'll take a look. I'll look at it. I just know at first it was having trouble with the technology, with the website, right? Like there was some Canvas trouble. I'll look at it. I'll look at for the grade and for points, I'll look at it. I just wanted to make sure that you could find where to resubmit. That was the most important thing.
Yesterday I saw is new. You say it's new submit. You write new submit. I did a new submit.
Got it.
But
Okay.
before I didn't see new submit exactly this.
When in doubt, this is kind of an idiom, right? But when in doubt, I blame Canvas, Leila.
Hi, Professor.
Hi, Angela. And I see Sharice and Mir.
Hi, dear Professor. Good afternoon.
Hi, Samira. Good to see you.
I have a question.
Sure.
What's your goal for this book?
I have a question. Why are you asking? Or I feel like there's a question behind your question.
Okay. I don't know. I think maybe we need to maybe at the end of semester you ask us for write essay. I don't know, or paraphrasing the chapter.
Yeah, I'd say there's two. The short answer, Leila, is this is more practice to talk about reading skills, right? This book is going to allow us to practice reading skills that help us to read this kind of research, kind of popular common psychology. So there's reading skills I'm going to talk about today. And then, of course, I always say that when I'm sort of teaching students how to read more effectively, you can understand and see the structure of what you're reading. And of course, after you see that structure, I will ask you to practice writing or following that same structure. So those are the big picture goals in terms of our course. And then I chose the topic for this book just because I think it's very interesting and I think it's very important for every single human being that has a cell phone in their life. I think the ideas are really interesting. Whether you agree or disagree, I think he's writing about really important topics. So that's why.
I like it. I like it.
Good. Angela, I see your little blue hand. Angela, what's up?
Yeah, I tried to connect yesterday for the meeting, but I can't yesterday. If you have time, can we speak after class?
Yeah, I have a student. I was thinking meeting. Yeah, the Zoom room. Yes.
Yes, I try yesterday so many times, but I can't. I don't know what happened.
Problem. I was going back and forth with a few different students too. So yeah, I have a student coming at 2:30, but after I meet with them, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Professor.
This is Anna.
Hi, I also have a question. So is there going to be available time for me to meet with you as well?
Yeah, you want to come today?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So when class is over, I'll make the announcement again for the folks who are here, but because I did see your email, Susanna.
Yes.
Text or email, I forget, forgive me.
Yeah, it was the text, but I was so into the all the assignments and the kids stuff. I totally forgot that we are on a spring break. So
Oh, no, it's not, no problem.
There was no spring break for me though.
No, I think I've talked to many students who said the same thing, but I completely understand. Yeah, after we finish, I'll just in the chat, you guys, I'll just put the link.
Okay.
Okay, more
Perfect.
questions.
Thank you.
For fall, what do you start? What class you teach? 340?
No, unfortunately, I'm teaching 350, but my very good friend and amazing human being and lovely teacher, Professor Margaret Travis, is teaching 340. And then if you like 340, I will be teaching 350 in the spring. So after you take 340, if you want, you can take 350. Both 340 and 350, remember, will give you college credit. You can transfer W340 and W350 to Sac State and to UC Davis.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah, it's a real, like, I think I've said it before. If I'm repeating myself, forgive me, but it's such a really cool thing about our department and our program here at ARC is to have 2 ESL classes that transfer is really not common. So it's really cool. In the chat, I'll just put her name, but if people, I know people are starting to look at the fall schedule. So let's see, 340, Professor W340 ESL W.
Right. I know her. She was my teacher, and she's a really good teacher.
I agree. I love her.
And she's nice, and she encouraged. I had planned to stop to study, and she encouraged me to continue, especially with you. She chose this class for me. It
That's-
wasn't my choice.
So it's her fault.
Yes, he chose. She said he never bothered a student, and he helped you, and for sure you enjoy with him.
I try. I definitely try. Hey, Rafi.
Hi.
For next semester is 2021.
Correct. Yeah. Next semester is fall to 2021.
Fall 2021. Yes. Mhm.
Did you cut your hair?
I shaved. Yeah, I shaved.
Nice. It's very nice.
I look like a little kid. I'm gonna bring it back. It's kind of like once a year. I like, big haircut or shave or something to. You got to mix it up. You know what I mean? You got to go back to the ground level and see you can't get too attached to one identity. At least I can't. I try and mix it up. Let me get my water bottle and then we'll get started. It's really good to see you guys again. I'll be right back. All right, we got some more folks coming in. Yeah, well, today we're going to jump in and start to talk about hyperfocus. I've got some stuff about reading strategies and sort of how to read through the book. But so it's going to be a lot of book talk today. But before we jump into the book, a few people were asking about office hours today. Absolutely. Some computer problems and of course normal stuff. But anything else? A short little question I can answer before we get started. Got Mrs. Hi, Hatima. Start in maybe like 2 minutes. We'll get going here.
¿Qué les dijeron? Entonces no comió casi, mira.
Primer periodo, chemistry, puedo participar más, tengo más motivación.
Great, I see they're in the chat that Reina says hi. Hey, Reina. You got 12 people. That's pretty good. People coming back from, I know like Susanna was saying, many students didn't get a break over spring break, but you know, still 2 weeks since we saw each other, since I saw you guys. So let's see. More people in the chat saying I look different. I know, without the beard. Don't worry. Before the end of the semester, the beard will be back. The beard will be back. It won't look like you have a 16-year-old teaching your class. I promise. I'm still the same person. My sister was just like, I can't. My sister was, in a loving way, being very, very teasing about how young I looked after I shaved. My
I know.
nephews were freaked out. They were like, Uncle, what happened?
Yeah, you look more
I know,
different.
because the beard, it makes you look more mature. When you shave it, it just like turns to like a baby face.
And you already said in my grammar 310 class, that was a word I yesterday. I was like, do we know this word? Baby face? Baby face? Person with a very young looking face? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then the fun part of the assignments, it was like I was doing my, you know, the post for other classes, and I was wondering like, why is none of them like responding me back? It's like weird. It's only me over there, and I was totally forget about the spring break. I was like, why people not writing? It's gonna be due soon. Like, why are they not responding? You know, the comments and everything. Like, it's like crazy. I was like, oh shoot,
Yeah.
we're on the spring break.
I think it just shows your mind is on what's most important. You know, your brain's not
Yeah.
like, you're not like these weirdos. Like, I feel weird. My brain, the only schedule I ever think of is the academic calendar. You know, so we
Yeah.
we all kind of have our, what would I say, like our defaults, kind of like the way we sort of organize and think about stuff.
Yeah, but it's also freaky because my brain, I feel like I don't get a rest. My brain does not get a rest because it's constantly in a process. You know, what's the funny part? Like, it's been already what, 12 years I finished the university. And still I'm seeing the dreams that I'm late, like Richard, like turning in my assignments. Or, you know, oh my God, like tomorrow I'm gonna have this, I have to, you know, to play this, and I don't know, like the notes, I don't know anything. And it's so funny. And then I woke up, it's like, oh my God, I have a degree, it's good, you know, I don't go to college anymore.
I love that.
I still today, like, it's my brain, it's constantly working. That's the, you know, the challenging part.
Well, then Hyperfocus is like the perfect book for you, isn't it, Susanna?
Probably.
This is exactly what the book is. This is a big theme of the book: the mind that never rests, the feeling that there's never enough time, the stress of there's always more to do. It's intense.
Yep.
It's intense.
It's terrible.
Cool. Well, it's a perfect transition to start to talk about hyperfocus, Susan.
Yes. And I'm just gonna connect my computer because, you know, in probably 20 minutes I have to go pick up my kids. Is that okay if I'm gonna be in the screens?
Of course, do your thing. Yeah, do your thing.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Well, I saw a few more people came in. I see Sadaf just hi. I'm just saying hi, you guys. You don't have to say anything, but Sadaf's here and Fazia's here, and who else came in? I think one or two other people. Mir's still here. Nasima, good to see you guys. Well, it is good to see you after 2 weeks. Like I was just saying to Susanna, I know many people felt like they didn't get a spring break. There was still always work and school and children and all that stuff. But hopefully you got a little, maybe one moment to breathe. So today we're setting down a lot of the work that we were doing before the break, right? We did paraphrasing practice for like 3 weeks, super intense and sort of push. Now, when I introduce the final assignment, you're going to get some more practice paraphrasing. You're going to get some more practice summarizing, but I think that's enough sort of intense focus on paraphrasing. So if you hated paraphrasing, good news. We won't do it so intensely this week. If you loved it, good news. You'll still get to practice it. Just we're going to talk about reading strategies this week with a little more focus. So here's today's agenda. Well, yeah, it's Thursday, April 8th. We're coming in to the home stretch, the end of the semester here, the last month. So here's our agenda. I've got a warm up for us, and then I'm going to start to introduce the book, Hyperfocus, and really the first couple chapters, the first few chapters that I asked you guys to read, are sort of an introduction to the most important ideas from the book. But the other thing that I want to do is to show you a reading strategy that you can use for a book like this, especially a book like this that has lots of charts and graphs and sort of visual representation of data and information, more and more and more, as so many things are online on websites. And I just think that, 2021 is a very visual time. We are just constantly looking at images and at screens. So being able to understand information and being able to understand data the way that it's presented visually is a really, really valuable skill. So that's what we're doing today. Angela's clapping. I'm not sure if Angela's happy that no more paraphrasing today. Cool. And I'll say one thing. So I bought the ebook so that we could look at specific parts of the book together on the screen, but that just means that I won't have the exact same perfect page numbers for you guys. So forgive me, but everything that I project on the screen from Hyperfocus, it's going to be the exact same material in your book. I just might not be able to give you the exact perfect page number when we start to look at it. So if you do have your book, it'd be great to have it in front of you. If not, I will project specific pages or specific images from the book onto the screen, okay? So just to say, I'm going to give you a warm up here to talk to each other. And there's a lot that we could say about these first little short chapters, but I think that the ideas I really wanted to start here in chapter 1. So you can go ahead and go to chapter 1 in your book. And again, I'll keep projecting this on the screen in a moment. I just want to show you the warm up activity. So I'm going to put you into.
Excuse me, Mr. Jeff. My son is sick. I need to pick up him.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
And I give the class and I watch your record for next.
Please do. Yeah, please. No worries at all.
Bye-bye.
Of course. Bye. I hope your son feels better. Always, you guys, always take care of yourselves. You are very, very intelligent adults. You don't need my permission. You guys you're good. Here's the warm up as a way to start talking about the book and start to connect to some of the reading strategies I want to show you today. So here's the warm up. According to the book, what is autopilot mode? And 2, how is autopilot mode connected to the subconscious mind, right? So again, this warm-up activity is just a chance for you to talk to each other, talk about some of the ideas in the book. If you couldn't start the book or didn't start the book, that's fine. There's no quiz or anything today, but maybe you can look at just, again, these first few pages of chapter 1. You can skim them. This is where this is where he introduces autopilot mode and why it's important. Okay, so if you remember some of these things, great. If you haven't read, go ahead and look at chapter 1 and start to talk to your group about these ideas. But that's what I want you guys to do. So according to the book, what is autopilot mode? 2, how is this idea of autopilot mode connected to the subconscious mind? Any questions about this warm up activity or these 2 questions? Cool. If not, I'm going to get the breakout rooms ready. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So there's going to be 4 people in each room. I'll give you guys at least 10 minutes, maybe 15. This is a really important idea for you guys to understand, so we can take our time with it. And like I said, talk to your group, see what you got. And if you haven't read yet, just take 15 minutes to skim the book, because it's going to be an important part of what we talk about today. Okay. Breakout rooms are open now.
What is Daddy? What is Daddy Jana? Daddy Jana? Daddy Jana?
Mari kita pilih anak. Ya, buat dijawab buat dijawab. Tidak, buat dijawab dokter.
Oh, yeah.
And Sudaba, I can see you're here with me. We're just coming back from small group, so I'll keep you in the main room because everybody's coming back in like 2 minutes. Good. Oh, I see Malele is here too. Okay, great. So guys, Malele, Sudaba, stay with me. I'm going to bring the people back from the groups in about 2 minutes. Sudaba.
Hello. Hi, Professor. How are you?
All right, some people coming back already, some people still in their rooms. So we'll start to talk about autopilot mode in just a moment here.
Progress.
Nadia.
Hello. I'm sorry. I'm late.
Again, there's no required attendance. There's no such thing as late. Like I said to Layla had to leave to take care of her kids. And as you know, you're all very intelligent adults. You don't need my permission for anything. It's all good, Nadia. It's all good.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
it's lovely to see you. And it's good to see everybody back in the room together. So I know I think I surprised group 2. They were like, Jeff, what are you doing in here? You never come in the breakout, in the warm up. But I did just want to talk to a few people and ask if you had the chance to read or not. It sounds like not very many people did, and that is totally fine. So I will say this, you don't need to cover no one needs to feel like that was at them. Believe me, that was all the groups. I will say this then at the beginning too. How can I say this clearly and quickly? I'm not going to post a lot of new lessons in Canvas. For example, lessons to make you do a reading quiz, to test you, to make you show me that you read the book. I think that's busy work, and I think that is a waste of time. Okay, so you can read the book whenever and however you can. 2 weeks ago, I showed you the schedule, right? So on a given day, at a specific time, I'm going to talk about those pages. Now, if you haven't read the book yet, you might be confused by those ideas because you haven't read it yet, but that's totally fine, right? So the way that but reading the book with me is going to give you 2 benefits. One, it's going to help you feel more prepared when I talk about some of the ideas in the book in Zoom. And 2, it's going to help you for the final writing assignment, right? So instead of giving you reading tests with true and false questions and making, whatever, I designed the final writing activity to make sure that you understood the structure of the book that we're reading, right? Because just like all of the assignments for this class, I show you something and talk about reading strategies and sort of help you explain the structure of what we just read. And then I ask you to do that writing. That's what we've done for the narrative and for paraphrasing and all that good stuff. So the sooner you're able to read the book, the better. But if you're thinking, oh my gosh, like I didn't read the book and I'm way behind, and I don't want you to feel stressed about some reading quiz or points, right? So reading the book will help you understand this type of writing structure. It'll help you feel more comfortable and confident for the final essay, but it's not like I have to read it by this day or Jeff's going to give me no points on a surprise quiz. You know what I mean? Like that's not the structure. So just because I heard a lot of stress in the small groups, right? Like, read the book. I want you to read the book. I ask you to buy the book for a reason. I think it's interesting and I think you'll learn a lot from it. But I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, I'm way behind and I'm so stressed. So that's what I wanted to say about the schedule that I posted in Canvas for reading and lessons and quizzes and all that good stuff. And just in case people forgot, I think I'm still screen sharing so you can see. Remember, on the home page, there's just this one link now that says hyperfocus. If you click that hyperfocus link, there's links to the reading schedule. There's links to my audio recordings. I've got audio recordings, I think, posted through here through 110. I need to finish posting. I've got my recordings for them, but I need to finish posting them in Canvas. So I did not do that on spring break, but the audio recordings for the chapters are here, right? Here's chapter 1 or chapter 0, chapter 0.5. So all that stuff's here for you guys. okay? So before I start to talk about the ideas, any questions about this stuff, about the schedule, the points, and any of that stuff at all, before I talk about autopilot and hyperfocus and interesting stuff and reading strategies? All right, let's go. That was my monologue about.
No.
Okay, good. That was like how to do this, right? How to read hyperfocus with me for the rest of the semester. Okay, so then I'd love to hear from a few people about, hold on, I see a comment in the chat. Let me take a look. I need exactly what you did. I need exactly what you did. More students coming in telling me, Jeff, you look younger. I know, we talked about this at the beginning. I know, without the beard, I look like a little baby. I know. So let's talk about autopilot mode, you guys. What was it? It really starts on page 15. He gives us some specific information. I want to talk about autopilot mode, and then I want to talk about reading strategies and how to even more effectively read a book like this. So let me go back to page 15. What did you guys talk about in your group? What is this autopilot mode and why is it important? We don't know, Jeff. We didn't read yet. Does anybody want to talk? Otherwise, you might just hear a lot of Jeff's voice today. I can do that, but you know, I think it's more interesting to hear from you guys.
We missed your voice. You have to talk today.
Just listen to me reading the book, Hatima. I'm there
Okay.
always, whenever you want. Too much, Jeff. Oh my God, so much. Okay, well, I'll just talk about it, and then maybe we can talk. I'll sort of tell you the basic idea that I want you to understand, and then maybe we can analyze some of the examples that he talks about in the textbook, right? So if you look at page 15 in the book, and again, this is part of our reading strategy here, you know, these things, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, these are called headers, right? So here's the title of the chapter, switching off autopilot mode. And then even underneath the chapter title, we get this thing called autopilot mode. And if you look, we even have more headers like this throughout the chapter, right? A day in autopilot mode. And then we get the 4 types of tasks. Now, again, I'm sort of jumping right into reading strategies with you. But again, in an online article, like we looked at and practiced paraphrasing 2 weeks ago, in a book like this, in a nonfiction book, right? Some kind of scientific, academic, or even sort of more casual, but a serious nonfiction book, these headers are giving you really important information. So a really effective reading strategy is before you even start to read, right? Give yourself 2 or 3 minutes to just flip through the pages. You know, I did find my paper book here. Flip through, there it is. Flip through the pages in your book and look at the headers, right? In that chapter, this will give you an idea of what the main ideas the author is going to talk about in this chapter. So we know that in this chapter, he's going to talk about autopilot mode. He's going to talk about, you know, we could guess what happens with a day in autopilot mode or what a day in autopilot mode is. He's then going to introduce us to something called the 4 types of tasks. And then let's see, that's it, right? Those are the only headers that we get in this chapter. So again, that's just more of a reading strategy, which I'm going to talk about as we keep going through the lesson today. So autopilot mode, though, if you're looking at the book with you on page 15, or if you're just looking at the screen with me, did anybody find, highlight, underline where he gives a definition for what autopilot mode is?
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Rafi?
Autopilot mode is a automatic reaction, or is it opposite? It needs more focus.
That's exactly that. No, it's the first one. And I think this paragraph over here is where he really starts to. So I wouldn't, in my book, you know, I wouldn't highlight or underline all of this. I think you sort of need to find for yourself where the most important idea is. But here he really starts to introduce what this is, right? So here's where he says, some decisions are worth making deliberately. Deliberately means with choice, with attention, with focus. And how we manage our attention is one of them. So here he says, we typically manage our attention on autopilot mode. right? When we receive an email, we instinctively stop what we're doing to respond. When someone has posted a picture of us online, we check to see how we look. Then we click to read what the poster said about us. When we're talking with a coworker, we automatically focus on forming clever responses in our head before she finishes her thought. So he's introducing this idea of what autopilot mode is. And as I said to some of the groups, right, autopilot mode is the things we do from habit, right? The things we do from habit. Now, those examples that he gives in that paragraph are sort of actions that we do from habit. You know, oh, I'm at work and I get an email, so I know I should reply to that email right away. Oh, okay, I'm sitting with a friend, we're having a conversation, I'm listening kind of, but I'm imagining what I will say in response, right? Now, the other idea that he introduces in this chapter is that autopilot mode is very important because some habits, we learn them and we do them without thinking or without awareness because it's very important, right? The example that I gave to group one is driving, right? For many people, if you know how to drive, when you first started to drive, you had to think about every single thing you were doing, right? Okay, where do I put the key in the ignition? Okay, turn the ignition. Okay, look over my shoulder. What's going on? How do I turn the wheel? Is that we think about all these things, right? But the more you drive, this just becomes a habit. And for many people, if you do drive, driving happens on autopilot, right? You don't think, now I'm turning right. Okay, good. And I'm turning the wheel and slow. We don't think about these things. We just do them, right? And this is an important idea in that second question that I posted. You know, in chapter 1, he starts to introduce this concept of the subconscious mind. That means the mind that does things by habit, the mind that can do things without thinking too much. You know, this is a very important part of our human life because, again, the subconscious mind controls things like your body temperature, your breathing, your heart rate, right? And as he says in the book, this is very important because if you had to think about every time you took a breath, you wouldn't be able to think about anything else in your life, right? You'd have to think, breathed in, oh, breathing out again. Yes, okay, I know, I'm aware, I'm breathing, right? There are very important parts of our life that happen on autopilot for a good reason, right? What he's introducing in this chapter, though, is some things that we do on autopilot mode, we might want to change. And I'll talk about one example here, and then I see there's questions, there's ideas in the chat. I'm ready to hear from you guys. But one important example that happens in my life is, you know, okay, let's say I'm done teaching for the day, no more Zoom. I'm ready to walk away from the laptop. I sit down on the couch. Oh, I'm going to relax. And then I get out my phone, and then maybe like, it's 45 minutes later, 45 minutes go by, and I look up and I'm like, wait, what just happened? You know, where did that time go? What happened? And that example, whether it's your phone or distraction at work or something that you want to be doing in your home, he's sort of saying autopilot mode is very important for some things, but when it comes to how aware we are, where we choose to put our attention, where we choose to focus, this book, he's saying, you know, we might be able to feel better, get more work done if we were more, we made more specific choices about where to put our attention. So that's the sort of big idea about autopilot mode and how it connects to this concept of hyperfocus. So I see, Ibrahim, I see your little blue hand. Go ahead with your question, then I'll check the chat too, please.
Hello, everybody. Well, I have a quick question.
Go.
As you said, the definition of the autopilot looks like, if I came with a just one sentence, if you get used to in something, that's mean autopilot. Looks like breathing, looks like an email or something. But in a vehicle type, so autopilot is totally changed, as you give us an example about that. So autopilot, it means vehicle should start doing his own job. If we do something, it's I mean, it looks like a manual thing, not the autopilot.
That's
So,
So you're right, and I'll let you keep going, but I want to say that's true. Ibrahim is saying something really important. He's using this term autopilot to talk about a human experience. But yes, originally this word came from autopilot in a plane. The plane flies itself. Autopilot in an electric vehicle, you know, new cars, whatever, or the Tesla car, whatever. The car drives itself. Absolutely. So it's not the exact same thing, but he's using that feeling to talk about something that happens in our own life, right? It's kind of like, well, like my brain is, it's almost like saying my brain is what my brain is thinking by itself. I'm not in control of my thinking at all. I'm not in control of my actions at all, right? They just happen. And I think that's what I'm trying to explain, that feeling of the phone, right? Like, Jeff, how did you know, what happened to those 30 minutes? I don't know. I just sat down, it happened. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, Ibrahim?
Yeah, you mean, look, autopilot is when you get used to something. It mean autopilot looks like a system is start working. It doesn't need to change anything. Looks like manually something.
Yeah, system is nice. System is nice. I think I would just add to it. I put on the screen here sort of, you know, autopilots when we are making decisions automatically. That's habitually, unintentionally. So I like the word habit a lot. I like the word you said there too, Ibrahim, system, right? So some kind of system, some kind of habit, like it starts and then it just goes. You know what I mean? And so that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. Good. And then that I saw Fatima kind of said that in the chat too. In the chat, Fatima was saying it's like acting without thinking. Great paraphrase, Fatima. Yes, thank you. It is like acting without thinking. Yeah. Any other ideas or questions about the definition of this? Because I did want to look at some of the examples he gave, because you know examples are very, very useful for human beings. So does this kind of basic definition of autopilot make sense? Cool. So now he says, and I'd love to talk about and hear from your examples, and this connects to my sort of second topic for effective reading strategies in a book like this, right? So remember, strategy number one, look at the headers. Look at, and the other thing I could add is look at words that are in bold, right? A word that's a header, a word that's a bold. It's like the author is sort of saying like, here's a summary of the information that you're going to read, or the next section of this book is about this idea. Or this book also uses lots of great examples of bullet points, right? And that's what I mean here. All of this section are bullet points. Now, usually, again, a good book, and you know, I think I choose this book because it's a good, interesting book. A good book, a good author is only going to use bullet points to sort of give you very clear, specific, and summarized points. So again, if you're sort of previewing the reading, or if you only have 10 or 15 minutes to read through a chapter because life is crazy, you know, look at those headers, look at those bullet points, because in a way, these bullet points are like the author saying, hey, what I just put next to this bullet point is really important, right? Is a very specific and important idea. So that's the second reading strategy. Look for bullet points, look for numbered lists. Again, I know we talked about this with an online article, but you see this in this book as well, right? He uses bullet points, lists, and headers all the time as a way to direct your attention to the main idea that he wants you to understand, right? So now to connect this idea to about autopilot systems, you know, the plane flies itself, the car drives itself, the brain thinks itself. He has this paragraph here on page, or these bullet points on page 18. They're on page 18 in your book, and I'm sort of projecting them on the screen here. So here it says, it's not unusual to have a hard time focusing. And so here he's sort of connecting these ideas of autopilot and focus, right? And attention. So it's not unusual to have a hard time focusing. There are countless everyday examples of how little control we have over our attention in our daily lives. Take, for example, the following. So, for example, how our mind refuses to shut off when we're lying at bed at night. While a large part of us wants to sleep because we have things to do in the morning, our mind insists on reliving the entire day. Next, how our mind brings up cringe-worthy memories. Cringe-worthy means bad, unpleasant. We don't like it. Cringe-worthy memories at the worst possible times. Where do these thoughts even come from? 3, how incredible ideas and insights come to us while our mind is wandering in the shower, but the same insights, the same ideas don't strike when we need them most. Next, how we find ourselves having forgotten our reason for entering the kitchen or the bedroom. How did we lose our grip on our original intention? Next, how we can't focus on something when we want to, like writing a report that's not on deadline. Or if you're Jeff, like grading essays. It's hard for me to focus. Next, how we find ourselves in bed bouncing around a loop of the same smartphone apps, right? Same 5 websites, same apps, just over and over again. I just checked my email. I don't need to check my email again. I just checked this web page. Why am I doing this? Or how we're unable to stop worrying about certain things until they're resolved or they vanish into the ether. I'm going to check the chat. Great. So do these examples make sense, or can you think of any other examples of this autopilot mode in our real life? Katim, I see your little blue hand. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I have an example.
Please.
It's like all we die one day and we don't know that. Is that the autopilot's example, or?
I feel like you're going straight to like some philosophy, which I love. So you're saying everybody's going to die, but we don't know when we will die. How is this connected to autopilot?
It's like an action, but we don't know it. Like we can't think the day or the time.
I think, do you want to say any more?
No, I hope you understand, but
okay. I think I know what you're saying. Like there's some things that we don't think about, right? There are some things we don't think about. Now, I think you're right. Human beings usually don't like to acknowledge death. Human beings don't like to think about like, oh man, one day I'm going to die. But so I think I understand why you made that connection, I think, Atima, but I do think there is a difference between saying, oh man, I know that this thing is happening, but I don't want to think about it, right? That's a little bit different than his example on the book. For me, there are 2 that are really my favorite, but I love this one because this happens to me all the time, right? We find ourselves forgetting the reason, right? Like you're sitting on the couch, you stand up to go into the kitchen, and you get to the kitchen and you're like, why did I stand up? Why am I here? What was I doing? You know, I think that's an example of he's sort of saying some things we just do on autopilot. We don't even know.
some things that happen a lot.
Good.
Like
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Great. And then I see Angela, your little blue hand. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, like can we do like if it's autopilot, or like for like example, when I start talking with somebody in the phone, it's just like in purpose. I start cleaning at the room, but I can't focus to start. Like I don't have plan to cleaning, but when I finish, I see everywhere is clean, and I wash the dishes and clean the kitchen. Like, is this the autopilot?
I love it. Yes, absolutely, Angela. And, you know, he talks about this a little bit later. Those are such perfect examples of, now there's a few key ideas for this book, right? Autopilot is one of them. Hyperfocus is one of them. And then the other thing that he starts to add is this idea of awareness or mindfulness, right? And this doesn't have to mean, you know, Buddhist sitting on a cushion, he's not talking about a religious or a philosophy, right? He's just sort of saying mindfulness, like, are you aware? And you're absolutely correct, Angela. So if you have, I have that feeling all the time, right? Like I go to do the dishes, I'm standing at the sink, I do the dishes, and then I walk away and I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking about when I was doing the dishes.
Right,
exactly.
Right. But okay, great, thank you.
That's absolutely it. That's it. Ibrahim, I see your hand too.
I want to, oh, yeah, I'm not mute. So I want to say an example. It happened for me. It's a little funny. So
let's hear it.
You know what? When you sit in the chair and you stand up and go to the kitchen. So for me, it's happened a lot when I'm stay at home. I go to the fridge, open the door, and shut the door back, and say, "Why I'm here? I need nothing to do. Bring you up."
That's right. Perfect example. Perfect example. A perfect example. And even more perfect is that thing that Ibrahim said there of why am I standing here? And what he sort of introduces in this book is that moment of wait, why am I here? That's when awareness, when mindfulness, when focus, that's that moment when it comes back. Or like Angela was saying, right? Like, okay, I'm done cleaning. And then I look around and I'm like, oh man, everything's clean now. How did that happen? You know, that's kind of when our awareness returns to us. And really one big goal for this book, and really I'll show you what I think the thesis for, where I think we get kind of the thesis, you know, that one of the most important ideas for this book is here in this chapter. I think a big idea he has, well, an argument he wants to make in the book is, we can have more of those moments in our life where we stop and go, wait, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Am I happy doing what I'm doing? Like, can I change? Do I want to do something else? So that it's not just that moment that Ibrahim and Angela described where it's like, whoa, where it's like, wait, that moment, right, where it lands on you of like, wait, why am I here? What's going on? So I love that example. That's fantastic. I saw Khatima's hand, and then I see Rafi's hand. Please, Khatima, you got an idea or a question?
Yeah, I got an idea. Like when we have planned to go shopping,
yeah,
we just have to plan to buy like 2-3 things. When we arrive there, we buy like a lot. We saw, oh, I need this. Oh, I need this one. Oh, I have to have this one, like this.
I love that example. And it's so funny. I love that example too, because Katima, I think about location and space and place. I think about that a lot. And I think you're absolutely correct. The grocery store, Target, Walmart, whatever, these places kind of put you into autopilot mode. And the autopilot mode in the store is, ooh, what do I want? Ooh, what else can I buy? Ooh, that looks good. You know, I think those stores are designed that way. You know what I mean? They want you to go into autopilot mode. You're like, man, I only came for some milk and a couple onions, but I left with, you know, I spent $20, So great example. Katia.
Yeah.
Great example. Rafi, please.
Actually, I have a question. I want to know, for example, if we close to the very hot dish, and I feel my hands burning and automatically pull down. Is it an example like autopilot mode or?
Great question, Rafi. I think that's more connected to, this is like the second question that I gave you for the warm-up, right? Like, how is autopilot mode connected to the subconscious mind? That's such a good question. And I want to be very clear here. Autopilot mode is not the same exact thing as the subconscious mind, right? Like the autopilot mode is connected to this because the subconscious generally controls habits and some of our biological rhythms. But I think that, Rafi, your example there is not really like a mode. To me, I think he chooses the word mode to talk about this autopilot, this habitual way of thinking over some amount of time. I think your example is more like a subconscious response or reaction. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The body just kind of knows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great example to show the difference between autopilot mode as he's presenting it to us and habits and subconscious responses. They're related to each other, as I say here in this question. They're connected, but they're not exactly the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, great question, Rafi, and really a great way, thank you, a great way for me to be able to explain that idea. So yeah, absolutely. Susanna, little blue hand.
Yes, I don't know, my question is kind of similar, like, is it subconscious thing or is it like, am I habituating? Like, is it hyper focus? If I every single day, like if I, let's say, automatically opening my eyes like 7 o'clock and starting doing like whatever I do every single day, is it like habituating, or is it like autopilot? I mean, is it the subconscious thing?
I think that's a great question. I think, and again, to a certain extent, you know, he's not a doctor, right? He's not making a medical a diagnosis. I just want to be clear. He studied psychology, and he has a lot of research in his book. But I think he is suggesting this autopilot mode as a way to understand, as not to define like a way of being in the mind, but as a way to really talk about some of the most common ways we get distracted in real life. So, for example, I wake up and I start my daily routine. I don't think he'd call that autopilot mode per se. I think autopilot mode in this book, as you continue through the book, autopilot sort of means when we're doing something, especially for a period of time, without any awareness of it, right? Like we're just doing it, we're not even aware we're doing it, and we're not really thinking about it. So what's the difference between a habit and autopilot mode? That's a great question. But it's not, I don't,
Yeah, because I know what is my question is like, I don't put like a alarm, in the morning.
yeah.
I automatically, it's just like happens automatically. I wake up exact same time every single day. So that's why I was kind of it was interesting. Is it like a habit? Is it subconsciously?
I mean,
autopilot.
No, I love the question because you're asking, I think habits are so important for humans. And I think humans usually think, oh, a habit is like smoking. It's a bad habit. It is, right? But I think we don't understand habit is everywhere in our lives. You know what I mean, Susanna? So that example of I wake up at the same time every morning because that's what my body's used to. Is that a physiological, is that a link between my body and my mind? Is that just a habit from my behavior of that's when I usually get up? Is that, you know what I mean? I think that's a great question. And I think instead of giving you a perfect answer, I would just say, the way he talks about it in the book, those two things are kind of the same. They're kind of connected, but he's really interested in autopilot mode as a way that distracts us from what we want to do, right? And I'm going to show it. I'm going to talk about this on the next page, but he doesn't make an argument about what's good, bad, right, or wrong. His whole thing, and why I love this book is, he's saying you have a goal to spend an extra time with your kids one day, right? But because you're in autopilot mode, you don't do that. You don't spend that time. He's sort of saying, well, figure out where that autopilot mode is and can you change it, right? If there's something you want to do that you're not doing, it's probably because there's some habit, there's some autopilot mode, and maybe you can change it, right? Maybe you can shift it. Like waking up at 7 probably works. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's a problem for autopilot mode. But I think the way he presents autopilot mode is habits that you do, especially for a period of time in the day where you're not really thinking, you're not even really aware that you're doing it. And especially if you kind of, when you're done, you're kind of like, man, I wish I would have used my time better, or I wish I would have had more time in the day. That's kind of the way he's using it in the book.
Okay, got it.
That was a long answer to your question, Susanna. So, oh goodness, Jeff, you talk too much. Ibrahim, I see your hand. What's up?
I think one difference between the habit and autopilot is a bad or good. We have some bad habit and good habits, but the autopilot is like you can't say it's bad or it's good.
I like that. I mean, again, I don't think that I think that all of your questions are fantastic. I don't think that he answers them perfectly in the book. I don't think it's part of his argument, but I love that example, Ibrahim. Like, and if that helps you guys think about it, right? It's like, okay, there's good habits and bad habits. So waking up at 7 a.m., great. It's a great, if it works for you, Susanna, great habit. You know what I mean? But maybe you're right. Autopilot mode in this book, he usually presents it as things that are getting in the way or preventing you from doing the things that you really want to do or the things you wish you had more time to do. So I like that. I like that, Ibrahim. I like that. That makes sense. Cool. So as I say on the slide here, right? So, and actually that was a perfect way to transition, Ibrahim. So So why is this important to, the book is called Hyperfocus. What is this, how are autopilot and hyperfocus related? Why is that important? Well, as I show on the slide here, he definitely says autopilot has pros and cons, right? And here's sort of my summary of the definition. So autopilot's when we're making decisions automatically, habitually, and intentionally, we're not making deliberate, clear, specific choices about where to focus our attention. So as I said, pros, some good things about it: makes life easier, takes less time, can help us make decisions. Some cons, some things that might not be good about it, right? The reason we might want to change it is sometimes we feel like robots, right? We're just being run by our own habits, right? I'm not even in control of my life. My habits are in control of my life. Sometimes we feel like we're procrastinating because it's hard to finish a task and start a new one. Again, teaching 5 classes, that is very true for me. It can affect our attention negatively, right? This is especially true when we're multitasking. We're trying to do 3 things at once, right? I'll give you some my own real life examples later. It can confuse us too. If we're trying to do too many things at one time, it can make us feel confused, right? So his idea, his proposal, right? The way that we can help make this better is to choose where we give our focus, where we give our attention. And I'm going to go now to page 20. I'm on page 20 in the book. And let me see, I see there's a chat. So let me just take a look. It might be one of the reasons. I think it belongs to your sleep time at night. Yeah, it's true. I mean, sleep is a whole, I could talk about sleep too much, but.
Oh, I was with Susanna.
Yeah, same thing about it.
Yeah.
So do you feel, and like Susanna was saying then, Katima, do you feel like when you go to sleep and when you wake up is a habit? Is that autopilot mode? How does it feel for you?
I think she makes her body to sleep the same time at the night and wake up the same time at the morning.
Susanna's shaking her head. She disagrees.
Because my son is like her. When I sleep him early in the night, he wake up early in the morning. If he sleep late at the night, he wake up late at the morning.
Habit.
Yeah, it's habit, I think.
But it's like no matter I sleep 4 o'clock, I still wake up at 7. I sleep.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think using Ibrahim's example, that's probably a habit, right? We get into the habit of when our body wakes up, right? And especially if that helps everybody, not just Suzanne and Katima, but all of you guys, if that helps you to think about the difference between habit and autopilot. Habit, good or bad, it could be good or bad. Autopilot usually means we're just doing stuff without thinking about it, and it might be distracting us. It might be slowing us down. It might be preventing us from, it might be helping us procrastinate. So I like that difference. So maybe bedtime, wake up time, sort of more of a habit of body.
Yeah, I think lady has more good habit with autopilots.
You think so?
Yeah, because like me, when I'm like cleaning the house, like when I'm cooking, I go to on the bedroom. I see, oh, I have to fix here, I have to clean here, and then when I came on the kitchen, I see, oh, I have to cook. I'm cooking and I go to the living room. I see, oh, here's dirty. I have to clean here. It's like that. But I didn't think I have to do I don't have plan to do all the things in the one time, but.
Oh, you're going to love this book, Katima. Like that you just described it perfectly, right? Now that's kind of an example of, Suzanne, I see you too. That's kind of an example of this. That is more of an example of multitasking, right? I'm cooking and I'm cleaning and I go into the bedroom and I see, ooh, I need to change that light bulb. Ooh, there's something on the wall I need to fix. That's kind of like trying to do or doing many things at one time. And I think you were talking, did you say something about the difference between men and women, Katima?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, that's in this. That's in the book, Katima. It's actually the research that he writes about in this book is that generally speaking, humans are not very good at multitasking, but women are much better at multitasking than men. That's research that he talks about in the book. Now,
that's a dude in the whole war.
Rafi gave a yellow thumbs up, I see too. Yeah, well, again, all of my amazing, wonderful, especially my moms in this class or grandmoms or whoever, you're gonna like, again, the female brain, generally speaking, seems to be much better at focus, attention, and multitasking. Now, I will say it's 2021 and there's a lot of distraction. So I think thinking about how to be more focused is beneficial for everybody. But yes, Fatima, your instinct is correct. Susanna, I see your hand.
Yes. You know, it's like probably the last question. Is there is any connection between hyperfocus and procrastination? Yeah.
And in fact, sort of the way he's presenting autopilot in the book is really autopilot, generally speaking, right? In this chapter, if you go back and sort of read it, he's sort of arguing autopilot is the gateway to procrastination, right? If you're procrastinating, he's sort of saying you're probably in autopilot mode, right? You're probably doing something that feels easier, you know how to do, doesn't really require any thinking, doesn't really require any effort. I mean, like I said, my example about myself, I know how to sit down and waste 30 minutes on my phone. I know how to do that. I don't need to think about how to do that. Do you know what I mean? So I think he doesn't say in the book, right? It's not that autopilot is always procrastination, but the link between them is definitely clear. And again, he'll introduce hyperfocus in the next chapter, right? In chapter 2, but the connection there is he's sort of saying, so if you can become aware of autopilot mode, if you can choose to where to direct your attention, then you can hopefully avoid procrastination. Does that make sense? Yeah, and that's my short answer. I see you too, Ibrahim. That's my short answer to your question, Susanna. But he talks about it for pages. So I kind of did that very quickly. But that idea, like if you're interested in that question, you'll definitely enjoy those pages in the book because that's definitely in the book. Ibrahim, yes, please.
So I have nothing to say about the multitask between men and the male and female. I know, and everybody know about this one. So I want to talk about the Fatima. So she said if she start cleaning, so she go to the bedroom and she say like right here is need to fix, right there is need to fix, and this one and trash or something. I think this one is a habit. It is not autopilot. You know what? Because I see you, Susanna. I see you, Susanna.
It's not a habit. It's not a habit.
Oh, that's not a habit. I don't have
No,
to do
it's
it,
not a
but,
habit.
you know,
Because if I have someone to help me, to share the things with me, I will say, that one who will help me with it, like my husband.
Yeah, right.
Can I
They
finish
don't do
that?
nothing. Men are poor.
Can I finish that?
No, yes, of course you can finish. You might get in trouble, Ibrahim. You can finish, but you might get in trouble. Please continue.
I'm done.
Smart
I'm done.
man.
Yeah.
I'll say this. No, okay. I'll say it, and then if I say something that anybody doesn't like, you can tell me. I'll say this. Okay, cleaning, cooking, anything that we do all the time, we could say, okay, that's a habit. Now, if we're doing a habit, if we're in autopilot mode, sometimes that means we don't have to think, right? That's the whole idea about autopilot mode. If I clean, for me, again, I'll just use my own example. I sweep my house every day. Like sweeping is important to me to keep it clean. Those 10 or 15 minutes when I'm sweeping, I don't really have to think about things, right? I don't have to think too much. Now, because I'm in autopilot mode and I don't actually have to think, okay, Jeff, pick up the broom. Now move the broom. I don't have to think like that, right? So sometimes when I'm in that autopilot mode, I will notice something that maybe I would not have seen if I were actively thinking, right? So I'm sweeping, and I'm like, oh, wow. Like I said, I had to change a light bulb last week, so maybe that's why it's my kind of weird example, but oh, that light bulb isn't working, I need to change it. Or there's something on the wall, I need to fix it. And actually, again, this is that example where autopilot mode doesn't always have to be bad, because he gives this example here too, right? he gives this example as a potentially a good example of what happens when we don't have to think so much, how incredible ideas and insights come to us while our mind is wandering in the shower, but the same insights don't strike. So that's that idea of like, I'm sitting at my computer and I'm like, okay, Jeff, think of a great idea. You've got to write something amazing. Think, think, think. But then when I'm trying too hard, it might not come, right? But if I'm sweeping, or if I'm in the shower, if I'm driving, if I'm doing something that I don't really need to think about, sometimes it just arrives, right? And I think there's a little bit of that in Katima's example, right? I know what I'm doing. I'm in the zone. I'm in autopilot. Wait a minute. There's that thing I didn't notice. Now, what gets hard is, and this is, I think, maybe what Ibrahim, where you might be going is, what becomes difficult is, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to remember the thing that you notice when you're in autopilot mode, right? In the moment, you're like, oh my God, I need to fix that thing on the wall. I'm so glad that I saw it. But then 30 minutes later, it's totally gone, right? Because we were doing too many things, or it's hard to remember. So all of these things interact and overlap in kind of complex ways. And I just sort of, again, I feel like right now, this amazingly wonderful conversation, I'm just sort of introducing these ideas because in the book, he's the expert. He's going to explain these ideas in much more detail than I can. But all of your ideas are connected, and I think that's the right idea there too. Ibrahim, did I see your hand?
If I don't be under the group attack again.
Well, let's go.
I want to continue that.
You're free to go.
You know what? If you think about something, that shouldn't be autopilot. That looks like a habit or something. So when you go to a room and see something need to fix, it is just your attention. It is not autopilot.
That could be true. But one thing we're going to find out as we keep reading is when we're in autopilot mode, right? When the active brain is not doing a lot of active thinking, sometimes in that mode, we do notice things that we would not have noticed. We do think about things that we would not have thought about. And often the bigger challenge, especially for men, like I was saying, is can we remember what we noticed? Because then it sort of then it sort of becomes multitasking, right? Then it means, okay, I have to remember I'm cooking in the kitchen, but then I walked into the bedroom to clean and I noticed that thing on the wall. So now I need to remember that thing on the wall. Then I go back to the kitchen to keep cooking. Now that's multitasking. And I think that's what he's saying. Women generally are much better at that. But I do think Ibrahim is saying something true for men and women, according to the book, is in autopilot, sometimes we might think or see or feel or notice things that we would not have noticed. Does that make sense? Yeah. You're always free to agree or disagree. Okay, perfect. So I do want to I want to connect this idea to page 20, because this is a really important idea I want to introduce before next week. So, and it is sort of connected to Katima's great example of, I'm walking from the kitchen to the bedroom, and when I get to the bedroom, I notice there's a problem on the wall, and will I remember? And okay, now I have to go back to the kitchen. There's this table on page 20 in the textbook. I'm going to turn the page. It's here, right where it says 4 types of tasks. Now, again, as I told you, I'm just going to keep sort of connecting back to reading strategies. Another very useful reading strategy is words that are in italics, right? Words that are in bold. So again, here he's got the word hyperfocus. He's put it in italics, right? Here we've got a two whole sentences that are in bold. And I can just tell you right now, when you're reading this book, you see sentences like this that are all in bold. Underline that sentence, highlight that sentence, put a little note to it, because this author is sort of giving a great favor to us as readers by putting the text in bold, right? He's saying, hey, this is important. I want you to understand this idea, right? So I sort of, and in fact, in my own textbook, I can't show you because my camera is it's not working at all. But this that I just highlighted, right, in my own book, my paper book, I underlined this and put a star next to it because I sort of think this is one of the main ideas for the whole book, where it says directing your attention toward the most important object of your choosing. A reason I love this book. It's not about what you should, blah, 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 other people. It's what you want to choose. Then sustaining, maintaining, keeping that attention is the most consequential decision we make through the day. We are what we pay attention to. This is a big argument, right? And now, again, I want to be clear, you might disagree with that. That's totally fine. But I do want you to understand that that's a big argument he's making in this book, right? And it's a big argument for why he thinks, why he suggests that hyperfocus is important, right? And in order to make this argument, right, one thing that he's doing to help us sort of make these choices, right? To say, what does it say? The most important object of your choosing is to think about all of the tasks, all of the work that you do in your life and put them into one of 4 types of tasks, right? And again, another reading strategy, the way that he does this is with this table, right? Where it says 4 types of tasks, this big box with the 4 boxes inside of it. Now, I'm just curious, has anybody ever, oh, actually, I do have one little baby slide for this to show you guys. So this is something called data literacy. This is something I'm really passionate about for students. I think it's so important with, now you're just gonna hear Jeff's opinion. I think that many teachers don't understand that the internet has changed everything about human learning, right? College used to be a teacher would give you access to a book that you had to find and buy in a store, and then you had to read that book and memorize the information in that book so that you could have that knowledge. Well, now pretty much all human knowledge is available for free instantly on the internet at any time. And especially for you guys, since you speak English, if you speak English, you can really, I mean, you know, the internet, the 2 largest languages on the internet are English and Spanish. So if you speak English, I mean, you have access to so much information, right? And I mention this because I really think the big challenge for teachers and educators in the 21st century is helping students to understand that information that they look up, right? Helping students to give context when they Google something or go on Wikipedia or read a quick news article, right? And one of the ways that I think is really important to do this is this idea about data literacy, data visualization, because when people present information to you in a chart, in a graph, in a list, which we do much more often now because our attention span is so tiny and we are trying to emphasize bold, make sure, you know, give me the headline in 10 seconds, you know. I think this data literacy and understanding that how data is presented is really important. So I'm going to sort of just take us through that. You know, we could spend a whole week I'm sorry, we could spend a whole semester talking about data literacy. But another reason I choose this book is he has lots of charts, graphs, visual representation of data. And I think it's a really sort of nice and pretty easy in this book way to get started with data visualization and data literacy. So instead of saying too much more and going way too deep, I put this in the slides for you guys to take a look at if you're interested. I just put the link in the chat, which I think is my favorite website, my favorite resource for understanding and thinking about data literacy. So again, I'm mentioning data literacy as a way to talk about charts and graphs, right? You know, this graph, for example, that says, this table, excuse me, that says 4 types of tasks, it doesn't mean anything to a student who doesn't know how to read it, right? So that's the most important thing. So have people seen tables like this? Does someone want to tell me what he's doing in this chart, or do you just want me to explain it? So I want to be careful, like, I don't want to assume that you already understand this, but I also know you're very intelligent. So it's a fine line here. Susanna, you want to go for it?
This is all what we're talking about. You know, the procrastination is like the unnecessary work. Like the necessary work that we know what we're doing, our focus in attention, it's like focused on it. Like the purposeful work and distracting work.
Good.
Basically, just put like a place like unnecessary work and distracting work together in the same spot.
That's
and
right.
Work and necessary work in the the same column.
That's a
Then
thank you.
just put it like procrastination and like the hyper focus.
That's right. That's fantastic. Susanna just did it. No, great. You did that very nicely, because the most important thing Susanna said there was to read a chart like this, again, thinking about visualization and data literacy, right? To read a chart like this and understand what the author's saying, you need to look at the columns, right? So there's a column that goes up and down, top to bottom, and then there's rows that go side to side, left to right here. So in this case, we have one column that says unattractive. And again, if you already know this, forgive me. If you don't, I'm happy to be able to teach you. This column says unattractive. That means everything under that word unattractive is unattractive, right? And then next to it, attractive, that means everything under that word is attractive. So for example, necessary work is unattractive. Unnecessary work is unattractive, right? Purposeful work is attractive. Distracting work is attractive. So anything that's under the subject, the title of the column, he's saying that fits that description. Then left to right, he's sort of saying productive. He's saying necessary work and purposeful work are productive, and unnecessary work and distracting work are unproductive. Now then, when you go down a column and across a row, he's giving you two descriptions for that type of work, right? For example, distracting work is attractive, but unproductive, right? Necessary work is productive. Grading essays is productive, but it's unattractive. It's a lot of time at the computer and it takes so long. So that's how to read this chart, right? So unnecessary work is unproductive and unattractive. And as he says in the book, that would be something like procrastination, like Susanna was saying, right? And he's sort of making the argument, right? So things that aren't productive, don't help you get done what you want to get done, and aren't even fun to do, this is a waste, right? This is a waste of your time and energy, right? And again, we can all think of examples like this in our lives. For me, again, the phone. I know, for example, just again, my own life, so that I don't want anybody to feel bad. This book is not about shaming people for the choices they make. If I have a podcast on my phone, like if I'm listening to audio on my phone while I'm playing a game on my phone, I am just wasting time. I'm not really listening to what's being played, and that's fine, right? Like sometimes it's nice to be distracted. It's nice to sort of de-stress, you know what I mean? But again, like listening to audio while I'm playing a game on my phone, maybe the TV's on in the background. I'm not getting anything done, and really it's not that attractive to me, but I still do it sometimes, right? I'm a human being. It's all good. It's all good. But that's
6 hours. But 6 hours playing game is not de-stress.
I agree. There is a fine line between being happy and distracted, and then I'm just like lost in the procrastination and distraction. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. 6 hour. I agree. And I want to, again, I'll just say it again. Any examples that you guys share or write about, it's not about judgment, right? And another reason I love this book, he's not judging you either. Some books are really about this topic, are like, this is what you should do. He's not like that. On one of the pages, I think we'll look at it next week, he says, hey, you choose what is purposeful work, right? What's the work that helps you get things done, feel productive, and is attractive? You get to decide what purposeful work is, right? No one else can tell you. You get to choose. So these are the 4 types of tasks. Necessary work, which is unattractive because it's hard work, but it's productive. It helps you get stuff done. Then we have purposeful work, stuff that's attractive. For me, like I'm not professional, but I love taking pictures and writing poems. I'm a literature major. I love to write. So that's very attractive to me. It's fun to do, right? And it helps me feel productive. But then there's things like unnecessary work, which is not productive and not even fun when you're doing it, and distracting work. things that are pleasant to do the first 30 minutes of my video game on my phone, but not productive, right? Doesn't help me get anything done. So any questions about this chart or anything about how to read the chart? And here, you guys, no question is too small about how to read this chart. This is important to me. So does this data visualization, data literacy, does that make sense?
And this chart is just supporting the, the statement that it says directing your attention towards the most important object of choosing, right?
Yes. Yes. And really, and the other thing that you'll start to see, now again, I'm not going to make you guys write a research paper. That's next semester, whether you go to English 300 or W340. But one big part of writing a research paper, I could put this in a slide, actually. I don't have this prepared, but let me make sure I give you a note about this. I've already got the page number here. So I can say, so again, this idea that I'm going to show you or talk about right now is it will help you when you're reading any kind of college level text. Something that many books do, research papers do, books do, articles do, is authors often, especially in a longer textbook, you guys, they have this thing at the beginning of the book or the paper called definition of terms, right? If for example, the title of this book is hyperfocus, in a way, he's kind of creating that word, right? So in order to use that word, he's got to explain to the reader what it even means, right? And this page on page 20, this table on page 20 is where he talks about necessary work, unnecessary work, distracting work. Those phrases, those terms will keep coming up again in the book. So at the beginning, he has this definition of terms, right? He sort of tells you, hey, reader, when I say distracting work, what I mean is, work that is attractive but unproductive. Or, hey, reader, when I say a purposeful work, I mean work that is attractive and productive, right? So that's part of the reason he's presenting us with this chart, is these ideas are important, not just for his argument, but it's also important that you understand what he means when he uses those words. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please, Ibrahim.
I'm not getting still. So can you give me a short answer of this question? So why this author want to explain about the autopilot underneath the hyperfocus highlight? Like,
yeah,
why?
Yeah, the argument, and you'll see it more, again, I don't know.
Because for me, the title is the hyperfocus is totally different than the autopilot.
Well, okay, good. What gets in the way of hyperfocus?
Yeah, what do you mean?
What prevents a human from having very good focus?
To focus in one thing at a time.
I think, Fatma's, you're doing sort of a definition of terms. You're sort of defining what good focus is. I'm asking sort of, again, everyone on the Zoom right now, or whether you're watching on the recording, you are free to agree or disagree with this statement. But I think the author of this book, Chris Bailey, is arguing one big reason that people find it difficult to focus. One reason people cannot get into hyperfocus mode is autopilot. And the idea is, if we become aware of what autopilot is, if we become aware of when we go into autopilot mode, then we can choose to exit autopilot mode and choose to enter into this hyperfocus thing. Now, the other thing I want to say, does that make sense?
For me, not. Sorry.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I'll say a short version and then I'll expand. So I think autopilot mode is important at the beginning of the book because he's going to argue that autopilot mode is one thing that prevents us from focusing, right? And he's going to talk about the other big thing and how autopilot mode really ends up being important is when he starts to talk about how much attention we even have. And that comes up in the second chapter. So even if you don't, Ibrahim, even if you, or anyone else who feels like Ibrahim, oh my God, why are we talking about habits and autopilot mode? You get a lot more of it. So the other thing I can say about this, books like these is definition of terms. If you're reading them going, what is this? I don't fully understand. Very, very normal, right? Because he hasn't really applied this idea yet. First, he's just sort of saying like, hey, here's these 3 or 4 really big ideas. I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say them, and then I'm going to show you why they're important. And this is another reason some students hate reading research papers, because it's like let's say you're reading a college research paper and it's 15 pages. The first 5 pages might be the introduction. And again, huge complaint from ESL students is like the structure of academic essays is introduction. Hey, in this essay, I'm going to tell you about X, Y, and Z. Then the body is, hey, I'm telling you about X, Y, and Z. And then the conclusion is, hey, what I just told you is X, Y, and Z. And a lot of students are like, oh my God, like, why are you telling me what you're going to tell me? Just tell me. And that is and I understand that complaint. That is that makes total sense to me. So in a certain way, Ibrahim, that question you're having of like, wait, what's the connection between autopilot and hyperfocus? Is a great question, because it only comes up from this structure of these type of American sort of English, nonfiction research style papers. So again, that was a really long, I just talked a lot there, but your question made me think about that, because it's a really important idea, right? We're at the beginning of the book. And if you're feeling like, why are you telling me about this thing you're gonna tell me about? You're very normal. Many students feel the same way. Just tell me.
You mean, Professor, it's better to say the autopilot in the beginning of the book is a kind of bridge from the outside the book to the book, or this is a good introduction to the book?
Both. Yeah. So and sort of necessarily, sort of by necessity, by definition, if the author is introducing these definition of terms, right? Hyperfocus, a necessary work, unnecessary, whatever, all these different terms, in a certain way, if the author's introducing those words to define them, he's like, oh, and I think doesn't he say this? Let me see if I can find you an example.
You mean he want to get our attention to the book?
Yeah, because even on page 20, it's at the very bottom of page 20. Wait, let me see. Actually, it's at the very beginning. Yeah, it's at the very bottom of page 20 in the paper book. On my ebook that I'm projecting, it's this last thing. Look here, another reason I love him, he actually just explains to you some of the structure of the book. Many authors, when you go to English 300, when you get your bachelor's degree, they don't even tell you a sentence like this. This sentence, he straight up says, I'll refer to this grid quite often. So let's take a look at each of the 4 categories. Like, this is the author sort of with own awareness saying like, hey, I'm going to say these words a lot. So let me explain to you what I mean when I say them. And when he's defining terms, by definition, he kind of has to introduce the themes or the ideas that are connected to those words. Do you know what I'm saying, Ibrahim?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And anyway, I just agree. I want to be very clear here, Ibrahim. Like, I agree with your question. Like Susanna and Rafi were saying, that, yeah, it sounds like you're there with me. What prevents hyperfocus? Well, how is autopilot connected to hyperfocus? Well, he argues autopilot can prevent us from becoming hyperfocused. And if you guys are nodding your head saying, yes, that makes sense to me, awesome. And if you're not, keep going, because eventually he'll apply that and he'll show you real examples of that, right? And this is the other thing I know now from doing this job for long enough is everybody learns in different ways. You know what I mean? Some people love to get all the information up front. Some people just want examples right away. Some people want to understand the theory before they see examples. I mean, we all learn and process information in different ways. So if you're watching the video and you're like Ibrahim, if you're here in the class and you're like Ibrahim, like 20 pages of defining words, oh my God. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying this is how we do it with American level college writing. You know what I mean? Like, this is how it goes, you know?
Looks like wait for it.
Wait for it, wait for it. I have a friend in grad school and she would say all the time, when she taught undergrads, right, she would say, when you read a book or when you read a paper in class, just read the last 2 pages, because go for the spoiler, because in most books, academic books and academic essays, the most important information is in the last 2 or 3 pages. So she would teach her students, right? Just go for the spoiler. Don't waste your time at the beginning. It's all the author just saying, here's what I'm going to tell you. Stop telling me what you're going to tell me and just tell me. So again, I totally get you, Ibrahim. I totally get you. I totally get you.
How cool is this idea? I want to go read the last 3 pages.
Oh, well, again, wait, in 2 weeks from now, I've got another sort of reading strategies specifically for trying to find the main idea, right? Because most of the reading strategies I'm giving you today are sort of ways to, if you've only got 30 minutes to read 30 pages, you know, how can you make the most use of that time? How can you make sure you understand the main idea of those pages, right? That's what I mean by look for the headers. Look for words in bold, look for charts and graphs, right? Those are really big clues. The author saying like, hey, here's some important ideas that I want you to remember. But how do you find the main idea for a whole book? How do you find the main idea for a whole paper? That's a different reading strategy. So yeah, if you like my friend from UC Davis, her idea, go for the spoiler. Hey, go for the spoiler, Ibrahim, go for it. I love it. Did someone have a question or an idea?
So, I mean, Ibrahim, if you just go through first 3 pages, it gives you a hint of the connection between hyperfocus and autopilot mode.
What page, Susanna?
First 3 pages, if you pay attention, especially from pages 17, before the 4 types of tasks.
Got it. Yeah.
It gives you like the day in autopilot mode, the environment in which we live and work. It kind of an entry, like what he wants to say.
Yeah.
And how it gives you, how it's connected. You know, it gives you an example how our mind refuses to shut up when we're laying down in bed.
Yeah.
And after those all examples, it gives you it just gives you a hint like about like how it's connected with our focusing our mind, you know, correctly, like in a right way. So in the future, you know, we can be more aware of our, you know, the focusing skills. I mean, the I don't know how to say, you know, in English it's so hard. I understand, but you know, it's like my vocabulary is not like
You're good. We know what you got. And I think you're right. I mean, like, yeah, I'll just say I agree with Susanna, and I'll circle back and say, Ibrahim, I bet you as you keep reading and you see him give practical examples of what hyperfocus is, I think this idea of autopilot will start to make more sense. I hope.
Dear Professor Orr, from this chart, hyperfocus has a very attractive ways to how to concentrate of the focus and it is also productive resource to understand the necessary concept of the focus, which is as you mentioned, dear Professor, or about habit and autopilot. We know habit is a daily routine that everybody is a part of the everybody has the different habit, but autopilot is a period of time that the person and remain immediately automatically for something that they are see or listening or maybe reading or writing.
I like that. I agree. I agree with what Samira said. And I would add, the only thing I'll add is hyper-focus. Samira did a great job explaining that chart there, or the table there, and some of the ideas. And listening to you, Samira, it made me think the hyper-focus will help you, hope his goal, right? His argument is hyper-focus can help us to be aware of when we're doing unnecessary work, when we're doing distracting work, when we're doing purposeful, when it can help us become aware of what type of work we're doing. And if we want to be doing different work, right? If we want to do something different, then how to make that choice, right? And his argument is that hyperfocus is directly connected to how much awareness and attention we have. And the next chapter, right, if you look at, we're pretty close to the end of class here today, so I won't introduce this too deeply. But again, this does kind of, I think he does a nice job with the flow of the book. In the beginning of chapter 2 there, and that's on page 23, the beginning of chapter 2 is where he introduces this idea of attention, right? He definitely has an argument to say, well, this will just sort of prepare you if you haven't read and if you're going to skim before next week, right? What the research sort of shows and what scientists now understand is, humans only have a specific amount of attention. It's 2021. We want to believe, ooh, I can always make more attention for myself and I can always have 100% perfect attention. It's like, no, dude. Like, are you tired? Are you stressed? Are the kids in the house? Did you eat? Like, how able are you even to focus? How much attention do you even have? And like I said, if you are a woman, if you have a woman brain, you have a little more attention than men. But, everybody, the argument in chapter 2 is, let's just go real quick as a more example of data literacy and visual literacy. On page 28, he's got really nice graphics where he starts to present us, this is not like the other table where we've got some very specific ideas. He sort of shows us, okay, imagine that everyone has some specific amount of attention that's possible, right? At a given time, you have some available attention to you, right? That's what he's showing you on page 28. And I'll talk more about this next week because I think it's really important. Then he starts to show us other examples though, multitasking there, that example is on page 33. He's sort of saying, okay, well, there are some things that you can fit more than one thing inside that circle, right? Inside however much attention you have. And his examples are really small, right? Like he's saying, for example, breathing, everyone's breathing all the time. It's a really small little circle. It doesn't take up much room, right? But maybe if you're walking, I'm paying attention. Okay, if I'm outside, is there a hole in the sidewalk, right? Is it Sacramento streets? Are there, is there a tree root that's coming up? I'm sort of paying some attention. So he starts to introduce this idea of attentional space. And again, that's on page 20. Excuse me, I forgot, 28, where he shows us this empty circle saying we all have some amount of attentional space. And then on page 33, he's sort of saying, well, that attentional space gets filled up. And sometimes if we look at page, this is on page 36 in the book, sometimes we're trying to do too much and our attentional space can't handle it, right? So in this case, we've got a circle that's bigger, task 1 plus task 2, that's bigger than our attentional space. And I'm doing this way too fast because I know we're going to get to talk about it next week, but I did want to show you this idea of attentional space and again, connect it to understanding visual data, right? Because in the next chapter, he really starts to show you images, charts, and graphs to help you understand some of the ideas, right? Because like I said, lots of different types of learners. Some people love to see it. Some people love to read it. Some people love to hear it. That's why I record myself reading the book. So lots of different ways to engage with this material. But in 2021, right, you are going to see lots of graphics, images, charts, and tables. And that's why I'm mentioning it as a reading strategy, right? So again, if you're here in the room with me, if you're watching the recording, if you're looking at this graphic here where it says multitasking with habits, right? If you're looking at this going, what the heck is this chart about? That's totally fine. But I want you to understand reading strategy wise, if an author took the time to put an image like this in the book, it's important. And you should stop and slow down and ask yourself, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't understand what the author's saying. What is he saying in this image, right? That's just a general reading strategy for you guys. So if you see some graphics images, stop, slow down when you're skimming and ask yourself, whoa, the author's saying, so multitasking with habits must be an important idea if he's talking about it with an image. Or if I go back to this page, or multitasking doesn't work. Uh-oh, well, what's going on there? Again, we all, your guys' examples at the beginning of class, we all know what happens when multitasking doesn't work. I see Rafi's added something in the chat. I think after a while, hyperfocus turns to autopilot mode. Oh, Rafi is, maybe she's already been reading the book, but yes. So again, in the chat, Rafi says, I think after a while, hyperfocus turns to autopilot mode little by little. This is his kind of dream at the end of the book, right? Is eventually focusing our attention, hyper-focusing our attention becomes a habit. So you go into autopilot mode on something that is productive, that is helpful. Just like, you know, Susanna's example, waking up at 7, if it works, it works. You don't need to worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's great that that's gone into autopilot mode. And Rafi, that is exactly correct, right? So there's a whole chapter, I think it's chapter 4, I forget, where it's sort of saying how to make focus, how to make hyperfocus a habit. So that's absolutely one of the goals for the book. So great point, Rafi, great point. So we are just about at the end of class. I know I really just introduced chapter 2 really quickly. So if you're saying, Jeff, you went too fast, you're right. We'll talk about it next week. But I did want to start to show you some more images and examples and help prepare you for what you might start to read this week. So again, I'm just going to go back into Canvas real quick and make sure I leave a few minutes for questions before we go. But remember, here's the reading schedule. So in a perfect world, you finished page 1 through 49. It's not a perfect world. Some of you already said didn't have time to read. That's fantastic. So next week, I'm going to at least talk about some of these ideas, but we really only talked about pages 1 through 30. So I will talk about attentional space next week. And my real advice, my real wish, my real dream is read as much as you can, you know. If you know, you all know how I feel. Your families and your lives are way more important than spending 17 hours or whatever reading a book. But I would love, read as much as you can. It's going to help you when we talk about it in class. It's going to help you when you, definitely going to help you when you go to write. So read as much as you can, and I'll post myself, finish the second half of the book. Like I said, I have the files. I just need to post them on Canvas. But again, everything through next week. So that's pages 1 through 110. If you want more of Jeff's voice, you can listen to all of those pages on the Hyperfocus page. Thank you, Abraham. I just get, you know.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Before, yeah, please.
Attention space, it's built up. That's when we start procrastinating. Right?
Could, or sometimes procrastinating is taking up attentional space, so that if you look at, I love these images in the book because they're sort of basic, they're sort of simple to understand. I think his argument is sort of saying, if you look at this chart or this image, excuse me, where there's too much, I think he's sort of saying, if one of your tasks is procrastination, that might be why you feel overwhelmed, right? That might be why you feel like you don't have enough attention, is because, well, 20% of your attention is on this task that is not necessary. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Susanna. I think you're exactly correct. I just wanted to add a little bit of dimension, of depth to this idea about attention and procrastination. But please go ahead, say more.
You know why I'm asking? Because I think it's something has to do with the subconsciously things, because when I'm reading something, I want to read, but my body tells me, to do different thing. It just tells me to procrastinate.
Yeah.
and it just pisses me off because I want, yes, I want to continue to reading. I want to read, but my brain is like, no, 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 no reading. No reading. Just do whatever you want, but not reading. So it's like basically subconsciously something is happening, but consciously I want to do different thing.
Yeah, I'd say I love that. And I'd say now this was like Ibrahim's point. There is a fine line between distracting and unnecessary, right? But I think, Susanna, the type of procrastination you're talking about there is, okay, I have a little bit of energy, not very much, but honestly, this type of procrastination, maybe at first, like I said, for me, I always do feel like the first 20 or 30 minutes where I'm playing a game on my phone usually is fun, right? And that's this idea of distracting, because it's attractive at first, but it's unproductive. And for me, that's how I would define true procrastination, right? Like, man, this is way more fun than this other thing. I could kind of maybe try and focus on this productive task, but this is way easier and more fun. And I think, to me, that's how I sort of connect to this idea of procrastination. Like, I procrastinate because the other thing feels more enjoyable than the other option. Do you know what I mean? Like,
the thing is, like, it's kind of in your brain.
Yeah.
You have a control of it, and that's the thing that, like, because that's the thing that I don't understand, because it just like we have this much attention space that if we go like upper boundaries, if we just like cross the limits, it just like our body tells us no.
Yes.
That's messed up.
It is. Well, I know, like I said, humans, I feel like, especially in 2021, I know we're just about at time. So if you have to go, please don't feel like you're rude. I'm going to say goodbye officially in a moment here. But last idea, Jeff's last idea. In 2021, and especially in the United States, again, I know all of you guys, all immigrants, but a very American belief is like, you should always be able to do more, go farther, keep going. You know what I mean? Like this idea that like, no, like sometimes you're really tired and you just need to rest. Like sometimes your body has run out of energy and you can't do that thing. I think that's really hard for us as humans to accept, because we are dreamers, right? Human beings have big goals and take big risks, and we want to keep going. And like I'm mentioning American culture because for me, I was raised in America, but I do think it's a very American thing to be like, tiredness is not an excuse. Maybe you already know this idiom, I'll sleep when I'm dead. It's like, Jesus, that is a very intense idiom, So I think partly this, everything you're saying, Susanna, makes perfect sense when you're like, man, that's messed up. Yeah, I think it's very normal to be like, wow, I wish that I could just create more energy inside my own body and heart and mind. But his argument, and there's a lot of research, we'll talk about footnotes at the end of the book, right? There's a lot of research to say, sometimes you got to just stop. Like if we imagine that our energy is finite, that means at a certain time it ends, right? If it's not infinite, if it's finite, then we have to kind of make some choices about how we want to spend that time and energy and focus. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of just my own opinion now. That idea is a little bit in the book, but you got a little bit of just Jeff's ideas there. So I don't have any new lessons, right? Like in terms of what's coming up, I'm not posting any reading quizzes. I'm not going to force you to do, like I said, it's enough for me. Like if you have 30 minutes to do homework for this class, I'd rather you just read the book and bring your questions to class. Like that's going to be the best way to make use of this time. I'm not posting reading quizzes because I don't want you to feel like, oh man, I have 15 minutes to read and then 15 minutes to take the quiz. Read the book, skim it, go for the spoiler, read the last few pages of every chapter, Ibrahim, whatever you need to do, and then bring your questions. Because I want to keep, next week especially, we'll keep talking about the ideas in this book. And then 2 weeks from now, if anyone cares, or if we're multitasking, thinking about the future, I'll sort of introduce how we're going to practice writing the structure, right? How we're going to notice the structure of this book. I've talked a little bit about it today. But that's sort of where we're going. So this week, just read as much as you can. I think I love this book. I think all of your questions and discussion ideas are so good and interesting. I think these ideas are so important for the time we live in. So even if you disagree with the ideas or his arguments in the book, I still think the ideas he presents to us are really helpful and important for thinking about modern life in the United States, in California especially. Oh my God, very fast-paced place we live in, you guys.
Yeah, it's much.
So that's it. That's all I've got. I know some people wanted to come to office hours. So if you're gonna come talk to me in office hours, stay with me. I'm gonna put the link to that in the chat. But if you're leaving, goodbye. You're wonderful. I'm gonna stop the recording right now, and I'll see you next week. Stopping the recording now.